Today, we're diving into a really powerful strategy for navigating life's choppy waters, and it comes straight from the Raft to Freedom program. It's all about a simple but honestly pretty profound shift in mindset, moving away from just reacting to problems and instead proactively preventing them. So, let's get into it. You know, this quote from the psychotherapist Rollo May just nails it. It perfectly captures what we're talking about. Our real power, our freedom, it doesn't come from trying to control everything out there. It comes from mastering that tiny little space, that pause between what happens to us and how we choose to respond to it. And here's the central metaphor for our whole explainer. It's just so much easier to prevent a fire from starting than it is to fight a raging blaze, right? We've all felt that exhaustion of trying to do damage control, of fighting these emotional fires only after they've become totally overwhelming. But what if there was a smarter, less draining way? This is such a familiar feeling, isn't it? That desperate struggle trying to fight back against a huge urge or an emotional storm once it's already got a hold of you. It's an exhausting uphill battle. And what the RAF program suggests is that maybe, just maybe, we've been starting this fight way, way too late. So the framework we're using here is called the Raft program. And Raft is an acronym that kind of guides the whole journey. It stands for recognize that life just has difficulties, that's a given, abandon the harmful habits and reactions we use to cope, realize that freedom from those old patterns is totally possible, and train our minds to stay on a healthier, more ethical path. And that brings us to this much wiser way. Instead of fighting the blaze, we're going to prevent the spark. This is what the program calls the resolve to prevent. Now, this isn't about being fearful or hiding from life. No, it's about wise protection. It's about proactive self-care. It's about building a much stronger foundation for yourself. The Raft program frames this as a fundamental choice. Are you going to be the overwhelmed firefighter, constantly running around putting out fires on your raft after they've already started? Or are you going to be the vigilant navigator, who's scanning the horizon, who knows the map, and who skillfully steers clear of the predictable storms and hidden dangers? I mean, one is just pure exhaustion, the other is true empowerment. So, the big question is, how do we become that vigilant navigator? Well, it all starts with guarding our inner world. And that really just means being incredibly mindful and careful about what we allow to come in through our senses, because our senses are basically the gateways to our mind. And this isn't some new idea. Gautama, the Buddha, offered this amazing simile more than 2,000 years ago. He said, imagine your mind is like a fortified city. You wouldn't just let any old stranger wander in through the gates, would you? Of course not. You'd post a wise and trustworthy gatekeeper. Well, that's the exact role we can learn to play for our own minds. And that gatekeeper's job is really clear. First, you have to recognize what's coming up to the gate. Is this a friend, or is this going to cause trouble? Is this thought pattern helpful? Then, you actually have the authority to deny entry to things that are going to threaten your peace. You don't have to let them in. You practice discernment, getting better and better at telling the difference between what nourishes you and what drains you. And you do this by watching all 6 gates. What you see, hear, smell, taste, feel, and even the thoughts you generate. Okay, so that's the why and the what. But how? How do we practically do this? Well, the great thing is the Raft program gives us this fantastic, proactive toolkit to help us become that wise gatekeeper. And one of the most powerful tools in that kit is the sober breathing space. It's a super simple acronym for creating that gap we talked about earlier. So when you feel a trigger, first you just stop, pause. Then you observe what's happening in your body and mind without judging it. Next, you just breathe. Anchor yourself in the present moment with a few conscious breaths. Then you expand your awareness. You see the bigger picture. This urge, this feeling, is just one small part of your experience. And from that clear space, you can finally respond wisely instead of just reacting on autopilot. And this really shows the crucial difference, doesn't it? Reacting is automatic, it's impulsive, and so often it leads to regret. It's basically your past conditioning running the show. But responding is conscious, it's considered, it's aligned with the person you want to be, with your future goals. And that is the very definition of empowerment. All right, here's another incredibly powerful tool. What if you made a really heartfelt promise to yourself? The Raft program introduces this idea of saja, and it's pronounced sacha, which is basically a formal vow or resolve that acts as a boundary for you, like a North Star to guide your choices. And these personal vows, they aren't about restriction at all, they're actually about liberation. They are powerful statements of intent that you commit to. Just look at these examples. I will not look outside of myself for my happiness. I will forgive myself for the mistakes of the past. These are profound declarations that help you set healthy boundaries and stay true to yourself. The key is just to pick one or two that really, truly speak to you. So, how do we bring all this into our daily lives? Well, the beautiful thing is, this isn't just ancient philosophy. It's actually backed up by a lot of modern science, which makes this whole practice feel really robust and accessible for us today. What's so fascinating is seeing how all these different fields point to the exact same truth. Neuroscience shows us that prevention strengthens our prefrontal cortex, the CEO of our brain, and it keeps us from lighting up those old, unhelpful pathways. Psychology confirms that proactive coping, preparing for stress, is way more effective than reactive coping. And even ancient Stoic philosophy taught the value of thinking about challenges ahead of time to reduce their power over you. You know, it's so important to give credit where it is due. All of this incredible, life-changing wisdom has been compiled and presented in the RAF to Freedom program by its amazing authors, Dr. Catherine Jacob and Vince Cullen. And here's the best part. In just an incredible act of generosity, they have made the entire 67-chapter workbook available completely for free online. If anything we've talked about has sparked your interest, I really encourage you to go to raft2freedom.org and explore the full program for yourself. So as we start to wrap up, let's make this really practical. I want to leave you with a question to think about. Looking at your own life, what is just one trigger, one predictable storm on the horizon that you can mindfully plan for this week? How can you be the navigator of your own raft? And finally, I want to leave you with this fantastic quote from the end of the chapter about the power of total commitment. When we're only 99% committed to prevention, every single decision feels like a struggle. But when we go all in, when we make that 100% resolve to protect our own well-being, the choices become clear. The path, it becomes a breeze.